Welcome to Live Podcast. As we journey through the Bible, today we are in Acts chapter 22. So here we see that Paul is addressing the crowd. That's why we stopped yesterday. So let's just dive right into it. And Paul says in Aramaic, "Brothers and esteemed fathers," Paul said, "listen to me as I offer my defense." When they heard him speaking in their own language, the silence was even greater. Now they paid attention to him. Then Paul said, "I am a Jew born in Tarsus, a city in Cilicia, and I was brought up and educated here in Jerusalem under Gamaliel. Gamaliel was a rabbi back in the day, and looks like he was a honored rabbi. That's why Paul mentions him. As his student, I was carefully trained in our Jewish laws and customs. I became very zealous to honor God in everything that I did, just like all of you today. And I persecuted the followers of the way, the people who were following Jesus Christ, hounding some to death, arresting both men and women, and throwing them into prison. The high priest and the whole council of elders can testify that this is so, because he did it with their full knowledge. For I received letters from them to our Jewish brothers in Damascus, authorizing me to bring the followers of the way here to Jerusalem in chains to be punished. So Paul is giving his history of how he persecuted Christians and how he found Jesus on his way to Damascus. As I was on the road approaching Damascus, about noon, a very bright light from heaven suddenly shone down on me, around me. I fell to the ground and I heard a voice saying to me, "Saul, Saul, why are you persecuting me?" "Who are you, Lord?" I asked. And the voice replied, "I am Jesus the Nazarene, the one you are persecuting." The people with me saw the light but didn't understand the voice that was speaking to me. I asked, "What should I do, Lord?" And the Lord told me, "Get up and go into Damascus, and there you will be told everything you want to do." I was blinded by the intense light, and I had to be led by the hand to Damascus by my companions. A man named Ananias lived there. He was a godly man, deeply rooted to the law, and well regarded by all the Jews of Damascus. He came and stood beside me and said, "Brother Paul, regain your sight." And that very moment I could see him. Then he told me, "Go, the God of our ancestors has chosen you to know his will and to see the righteous one and hear him speak. For you are to be his witness, telling everyone that what you have seen and heard." Uh, what are you waiting for? Get up and be baptized. Have your sins washed away by calling on the name of the Lord. After I returned to Jerusalem, I was praying in the temple and I fell into a trance. I saw a vision of Jesus saying to me, "Hurry, leave Jerusalem, for the people here won't accept your testimony about me." "But Lord," I argued, "they certainly know that in every synagogue I am imprisoned and beat those who believed in you." I was in complete agreement when you witnessed Stephen was killed. I stood by and kept the coats they took off when they stoned him. So Paul confirms that he took part in the killing of Stephen, who was the first martyr. But the Lord said to me, "Go, for I will send you far away to the Gentiles." Okay? The crowd listened until Paul said that word, Gentiles. Then they all began to shout, "Away with such fellow! He isn't fit to be alive," they yelled, threw their coats and tossed handfuls of dust into the air. So Paul was chosen to speak God's message to the Gentiles, but the Jews clearly did not want anything to do with the Gentiles, and they saw the Gentiles as people who were not worthy to receive God's grace. And then Paul continues, and then the commander brought Paul inside and ordered him lashed with whips to make him confess his crime. So the commander thought that maybe Paul had committed a crime, but he was not confessing to it. He wanted to find out why the crowd had become so furious. When they tied Paul down to lash him, Paul said to the officer standing there, "Is it legal for you to whip a Roman citizen who hasn't even been tried?" Paul knew his rights. Clearly, he knew his rights. When the officer heard this, he went to the commander and asked, "What are you doing? This man is a Roman citizen." So the commander went over and asked Paul, "Tell me, are you a Roman citizen?" "Yes, I certainly am," Paul replied. And because he was a Roman citizen, by law, the Roman citizen could not be punished until he had been proven that he was guilty of crime. So um, the officer knew that he was clearly wrong. "Yes, I certainly am," Paul replied. "I am too," the commander muttered, "and it cost me plenty." Paul answered, "But I am citizen by birth." So the soldiers who were about to interrogate Paul quickly withdrew when they heard he was a Roman citizen, and the commander was frightened because he had ordered him to be bound and whipped. And then next we see that Paul is taken before the Jewish High Council. The next day, the commander ordered the leading priests into session with the Jewish High Council. He wanted to find out what the trouble was all about, so he released Paul to have him stand trial before them. And that was Acts chapter 22. That was 30, 30 verses in which we learn so many things. What are they? From Paul's speech, we know that he was a Jew born in Tarsus, a city in Cilicia. He was brought up and educated by a teacher called Gamaliel. Paul gives his history of how he was zealous in persecuting Christians who followed the way of Jesus Christ. And we also see that God chose Paul to be his vessel to the Gentiles and witness to them. The Jews didn't believe that the Gentiles were worthy to be saved or be part of God's plan, but Jesus came for everyone. Paul was a Roman citizen by birth, and when he mentioned it, they stopped lashing him. Don't be afraid of saying your identity, because that will be your can save you. Paul used every opportunity to speak about Jesus, and we too should do the same. God will save you no matter where you are. So we're done with the book of Acts chapter 22, and tomorrow we'll do chapter 23, in which we see the trial of Paul continuing before the council. God bless you.